I didn't mean to hear her. At first, it was just the sound of water running next door. The pipes in these old apartments always carried too much of everyone's lives. But then, beneath the hum, I caught it, a quiet, uneven breath. A sob that tried to stay silent. That's how I first realized that Mrs. Hale, my colleague's wife, wasn't as untouchable as she looked across the office dinners, all grace, soft laughter, and perfectly chosen words. Her name was Claire. Mid-40s, maybe, though it didn't show except in her eyes, the kind that seemed like they'd already forgiven too much. I was 26. Too young to understand the things she carried, and too foolish not to care. That night, I couldn't shake it off. I stood by my window, watching the faint light under her door across the narrow courtyard. It flickered once, then went dark. I told myself to mind my business. She was my colleague's wife, and he'd always been kind to me. But something in the way her voice trembled through the wall made it impossible. The next morning, she came by my desk at work. "Ethan," she said softly, "did you get the email about the client report?" Her tone was calm, her smile practiced. But her eyes, red-rimmed, careful, gave her away. "Yeah," I said. "Are you okay?" She blinked, surprised. "Of course." "Why?" I shrugged, pretending it was nothing. "You just look tired." There was a long pause. The kind where the air itself feels self-conscious. She looked at me a second too long before smiling again. "You noticed too much," she whispered, almost amused, then walked away. But from that day on, something shifted. It was small things at first, shared silences, lingering glances, moments that didn't belong in the daylight. I started staying late at the office, and sometimes, she did too. We'd sit a few desks apart, the hum of the vending machine filling the air. Once, she caught me looking. She didn't look away. "Do you ever feel," she said quietly, "like you're living someone else's life?" I hesitated. "All the time." Her lips curved, but her eyes stayed sad. "Then maybe we're both pretending." It should have ended there, with polite distance and guilty awareness. But that night, I heard her again. Through the thin walls, through the late hours, through everything I thought I could ignore. Crying. Not loud. Not desperate. Just, defeated. I stood in my hallway for nearly 5 minutes, hand hovering over her door. Every reason not to knock flashed through me: my job, her husband, the fact that this was a line I shouldn't even see, let alone cross. But something about the sound broke every reason clean in half. I knocked. Once. Softly. The crying stopped. Then footsteps. When the door opened, Claire stood there in an oversized sweater, her eyes glassy, her voice a whisper. "Ethan." "What are you?" "I heard you," I said quietly. "I just wanted to make sure you're okay." She looked at me for a long time, then exhaled shakily. "You shouldn't be here." "I know." And yet, neither of us moved. The hallway light flickered between us, yellow, uneven, like it couldn't decide whether to stay or go. Her hand trembled as she brushed away a tear. "You're too kind," she murmured. "That's dangerous." I wanted to say something, anything, but then, from inside her apartment, a phone buzzed. The name flashing across the screen made her freeze. Her husband's name. And just like that, everything changed. That I didn't see Claire for 2 days after that night. She kept her distance at work, polite, professional, like nothing had happened. But her absence filled the air around me. I caught myself listening for her voice in meetings, glancing toward her office door that never opened. It shouldn't have mattered. She was my colleague's wife, Daniel Hale, the man who had taken me under his wing when I joined the firm. He was the kind of boss everyone liked, steady, charming, confident. The kind of man who'd shake your hand too firmly and call you kid even when you were old enough to vote. I respected him. I still do. But every time I remembered the look in Claire's eyes that night, that quiet, trembling exhaustion, I felt something break in me that respect couldn't fix. On Friday, I stayed late again. Not waiting for her, at least, that's what I told myself. The office lights dimmed automatically at 10, leaving just the glow of my screen. Then, soft footsteps. Still here. Her voice. I turned. She stood by the door, her coat draped over her arm. Couldn't sleep, I said. She gave a small, knowing smile. Me neither. For a while, neither of us spoke. The hum of the air conditioner filled the silence. Daniel's traveling again, she said finally, eyes fixed on the window. He's good at it, being gone. I hesitated. You sound angry. No, she said softly. Just, used to it. There was something about the way she said it, so simple, so tired, that made me ache. I wanted to tell her she didn't deserve that kind of loneliness, but the words felt too heavy, too intrusive. So instead, I said quietly, I used to hear my mom cry like that. After my dad left. She turned sharply. Ethan, I'm sorry, I said quickly. I shouldn't have, no, she interrupted. Her voice trembled. It's okay. It just reminded me that I'm not the only one who hides behind closed doors. For a moment, we just looked at each other. The air between us was too still, too fragile. Then she said something I'll never forget. Do you ever feel like you're comforting someone you shouldn't? I didn't answer. Because the truth was yes, every single time I looked at her. Later, when we finally left the office, the night was cold and quiet. She walked beside me to the parking lot, her steps slow, deliberate. The streetlights painted soft halos on the wet pavement. I used to love the rain, she said suddenly. Now it just makes everything feel heavier. I glanced at her. Then maybe you need someone to share it with. She stopped walking. Her breath fogged in the chill, her eyes searching mine. That's not fair, she whispered. I know. A pause. Long, delicate, dangerous. Her hand brushed mine, barely, like an accident that lasted too long to be won. The kind of touch that leaves a memory behind even after it's gone. We both looked down at our hands, then away, and when she finally spoke again, her voice was barely audible. Ethan, we can't. I nodded. Then why does it feel like we already did? It happened the following week, the moment that turned quiet longing into something dangerous. Daniel was back in town. The office suddenly felt smaller, louder, like every word between Claire and me had to be buried under the sound of other people talking. She avoided my eyes, and I tried to pretend that her laugh didn't sound different when he was around. But I noticed everything. How she stiffened when he touched her shoulder. How she smiled for him, but not with him. How she never looked at me when he was near. The guilt came in waves, sharp, cold, and unrelenting. One evening, Daniel called me into his office. Ethan, he said, leaning back in his chair, Claire mentioned you've been helping her with the client files. Thanks for looking out for her. His tone was friendly, easy, but my stomach twisted. I forced a smile. Of course. She's great to work with. He grinned. She's great at everything. There was pride in his voice, but something else, too. Distance. The kind that sounded like a man admiring a painting he hadn't looked at in years. When I left the office, Claire was standing by the elevator. She didn't speak, just pressed the button and kept her eyes fixed on the floor. He talked to you, didn't he? She said quietly as the doors slid shut. I nodded. Her jaw tightened. I told him you've been helping. That's all. I know, I said. You don't have to explain. But she did. I can't have him doubting me right now. I wanted to tell her that she didn't owe anyone her calmness, her perfection. But before I could, the elevator stopped between floors with a jolt. The lights flickered. We froze. And for a heartbeat, the world went completely silent, except for the sound of our breathing. Great, she muttered, pressing the buttons. Just what we needed. I tried to laugh, but it came out uneven. Guess we're stuck. Her hands trembled slightly, and I realized she was afraid, not of being trapped, but of being alone here with me. Hey, I said softly, it's okay. She looked up, and something cracked in her eyes. No, Ethan. It's not. The light above us flickered again, catching the wetness at the corner of her lashes. I reached out, instinct, nothing more, and touched her wrist. You don't have to pretend right now. Her lips parted like she wanted to say something, but no sound came. The distance between us dissolved. For a moment, we were too close, her breath mingled with mine, her perfume faint and familiar. I could feel the pull, the gravity of everything unspoken. Then, with a soft chime, the elevator jerked back to life. We both stepped apart, fast, as if burned. When the doors opened, Daniel stood right outside. Claire, he said, surprised. What are you two doing in there? Claire blinked, straightening. It stopped for a minute. He laughed, clapping my shoulder. You didn't scare her, did you, kid? I forced a grin. No, sir. But as we walked out into the lobby, Claire didn't look back. She didn't have to. The tension in her silence said everything. That night, I didn't hear her crying. And somehow, that was worse that I started avoiding her. Not because I wanted to, but because I had to. Every glance, every half-smile, every stolen second in the same room had started to feel dangerous. The air around Claire wasn't air anymore, it was static. One wrong word, one longer look, and the whole thing would explode. But she noticed. Of course she did. Are you mad at me? She asked one evening as we both left the building. The parking lot was half empty, the sky low and gray. No, I said too quickly. Just, busy. She tilted her head. Busy avoiding me? Her voice wasn't angry, it was soft, trembling slightly, like she already knew the answer. I sighed. Claire, this is getting complicated. Her eyes flickered. It already was. A few days later, Daniel threw a small dinner at their house, some co-workers, a few neighbors, nothing formal. I told myself not to go, but I showed up anyway. I couldn't stay away. When she opened the door, she froze for half a second, just long enough for me to notice the way her breath caught. She was wearing a dark green dress, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked nothing like the composed woman from the office. She looked alive. Daniel clapped me on the back, beaming. Glad you came, kid. Claire's been asking if you'd show. I looked at her, and she turned away, busying herself with the wine glasses. Throughout the night, our eyes met too many times. Every time she laughed at someone else's joke, I felt that sharp sting in my chest, jealousy, or maybe guilt. I couldn't tell the difference anymore. When the guests began leaving, Daniel walked a few of them out, leaving Claire and me alone in the quiet hum of the kitchen. You shouldn't be here, she said, barely above a whisper. I know. She turned, leaning against the counter. Then why did you come? I hesitated. Because I thought maybe you'd need me. Her eyes closed. Don't say things like that. I mean it. When she opened her eyes again, they glistened. You don't understand what this would destroy. I stepped closer. Maybe it's already broken. She shook her head. No, Ethan. You're too young to carry that kind of damage. I laughed under my breath. You think I haven't been hurt before? Not like this. The room went still. The clock ticked in the background, painfully loud. Tell me to leave, I said. She didn't. Instead, her hand brushed against the counter, and then against mine. The touch was hesitant at first, then stayed, just long enough for both of us to feel the edge of something we couldn't name. Her voice trembled. This isn't right. Then why does it feel like the only thing that is? Footsteps approached from the hallway, Daniel's voice, laughing with someone at the door. Claire's hand pulled away fast, her breath shaky. Go, she whispered. I stepped back, every nerve burning. As I left through the back door, her reflection lingered in the glass, eyes wide, lips parted, as if she'd almost said something that might have changed everything. And then, she didn't. The day the truth came out, it wasn't through a fight or a confession. It was through a silence that said too much. Daniel walked into the office early that morning, earlier than usual. He looked tired, eyes dark with something I couldn't name. Claire wasn't there yet. He motioned for me to step into his office. Ethan, he began, his voice quieter than normal, you've been spending a lot of time with my wife lately. It wasn't an accusation, not yet. But it was close enough to make my pulse race. Just work-related, I said, too fast. He nodded slowly, watching me. Sure. It's just, she talks about you. More than she used to. He smiled faintly, but there was no warmth in it. You remind her of someone, I think. Someone she used to know. I swallowed hard, trying to stay still. Maybe she just appreciates the help. Maybe, he said, leaning back. But be careful, son. You're young. And she's complicated. The way he said it, complicated, felt like both a warning and a threat. Claire avoided me that day. She kept her head down during meetings, left early for lunch, came back late. When I finally caught up to her in the parking garage, she stopped but didn't turn around. He talked to you, didn't he? She said quietly. Yes. Her shoulders dropped. He found my phone. My heart stopped. What? She turned, finally meeting my eyes. The messages. I thought I deleted them all. He saw your name. I didn't know what to say. We had never written anything outright, just small things, check-ins, half-sentences that meant too much. Still, in his eyes, it would have been enough. What did he say? I asked. Nothing yet, she whispered. But he's watching me. Watching us. For days after that, every interaction felt dangerous. The office air grew heavy, sharp. Daniel's presence loomed, a man too calm, too polite, like someone waiting for confirmation of what he already knew. Claire looked thinner, paler. Her laughter, when it came, was forced and brittle. I can't keep doing this, she said one evening in the parking lot. Rain drizzled against the windshield as we sat inside my car, the engine off, windows fogging faintly. You don't mean that, I said. I do. It's over, Ethan. He knows. And if he doesn't yet, he will soon. Her voice cracked on my name. Claire, no, she interrupted, her tone suddenly fierce. You don't understand. He'll ruin you. He'll make sure you never work again. This isn't about love anymore, it's about survival. For the first time, I saw fear in her, not the kind that comes from guilt, but from being trapped. She reached for the door handle, hesitated, then whispered, "Don't call me for a while." And then she was gone, swallowed by the rain and the streetlights. That night, I couldn't sleep. My phone buzzed once, a message from an unknown number. "You should stay away from her if you know what's good for you." No name. No signature. But I didn't need one. I looked toward the window, the rain streaking down the glass like tears, and realized that everything had just changed again, that I didn't see Claire for nearly 2 weeks. Every morning, I'd walk past her desk, pretending not to glance at the empty chair. Daniel was always there now, early, alert, watching everyone with the quiet vigilance of a man who'd stopped trusting the world. The silence between us became its own kind of language. Every absence, every unanswered message, every day without her, it all spoke louder than anything we'd ever said aloud. But one night, she called. Her voice was faint, trembling. "Ethan, can you meet me? Please." There was no hesitation. She was waiting at the small park near the river, the one we used to pass on late drives home. The wind was cold, carrying the smell of damp leaves and city rain. She stood under the streetlight, coat drawn tight around her, hair loose and messy in a way I'd never seen before. When I walked up, she smiled, tired, but real. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said. "I wasn't sure I'd get another chance." We stood there in silence, the river whispering behind us. Finally, she said, "He confronted me." I nodded slowly. I figured. He didn't yell. Didn't accuse. Just asked me if I loved you. I swallowed hard. "What did you say?" She looked down, a faint, painful smile on her lips. I didn't know how to answer. That was worse than anything she could have said. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The streetlight flickered, the night pressing close around us. Then I said it, the thing I'd been holding back since the night at her door. "I don't care what happens next," I whispered. "I love you." Her eyes closed. A tear slipped down her cheek. "Ethan, I know it's wrong. I know it's complicated. But it's real. I can't pretend it isn't." She stepped closer, shaking her head. "You think love fixes everything. It doesn't." "I don't want to fix anything," I said. "I just don't want to lie anymore." Her breath hitched. "You have no idea what I've already lost trying to be honest." "Then stop losing," I said softly. She looked at me, really looked at me, and for the first time, I saw all of it, the exhaustion, the longing, the fear, the impossible want. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. "He's leaving for a while. I told him I needed space. I don't know what that means for us yet." I took a step forward, close enough to feel her warmth. "It means we don't have to hide anymore." Her eyes searched mine. "You're sure about that?" I nodded. "I've never been more sure of anything." The wind lifted between us, sharp, cold, restless. She reached up, fingertips brushing my jaw, her touch trembling. "You'll regret this," she whispered. "Maybe," I said. "But not tonight." The distance between us finally broke. She leaned in, slow, uncertain, inevitable, until our foreheads touched. No words. Just the quiet hum of two people who had stopped running from the truth. When she finally pulled back, she whispered, "Whatever happens next, thank you for seeing me." And as she walked away, the night didn't feel empty anymore, just unfinished. That it's been 6 months since that night by the river. The office feels different now, quieter, somehow emptier, like the air itself remembers what happened. Daniel resigned not long after. Word was, he took a position overseas. Claire left soon after that. No goodbye, no note. Just an empty chair, a faint trace of her perfume on the hallway carpet, and a silence that hung for weeks. At first, I thought she'd simply vanished. That maybe she'd chosen to erase everything, me, us, what we became. I tried to move on. I buried myself in work, in noise, in routine. But no matter how loud the world got, I still found her everywhere, in the way the light hit the office blinds, in the faint echo of a laugh down the hall, in the soft stillness that came right before rain. Then, one evening, I found a letter. No return address. Just my name written in her careful, slanted handwriting. Ethan, I don't know where to start. Maybe thank you. Maybe I'm sorry. Maybe both. Daniel knows everything now. I told him, not because he asked, but because I couldn't live with the silence anymore. He left without a fight, without words, just a long look that I'll never forget. For a long time, I thought I was broken. That I needed someone to fix me, to remind me who I was before I lost myself. But the truth is, you didn't fix me. You saw me. And that's rarer than love. Maybe one day, when enough time has passed, we'll meet again somewhere ordinary, a cafe, a bookstore, a street corner, and it won't feel heavy anymore. It'll just be a memory that smiled back. Until then, live. Really live. Claire, I read it 3 times before realizing I was smiling. Not because it didn't hurt, it did, but because it finally made sense. What we had wasn't meant to last forever, it was meant to change us. She'd taught me what it meant to see someone, not just want them. To understand that love isn't always about keeping, sometimes, it's about letting the other person become who they were meant to be. And in her absence, I finally did the same. I moved to a new city, started over, built a quieter life. Some nights, when it rains, I still catch myself listening, half expecting to hear her voice through the walls again. But now, when I think of her, it's not with regret. It's with something softer. Something that feels like peace. If there's one thing I learned, it's this: sometimes, the people who enter our lives for the wrong reasons end up teaching us the right lessons. And sometimes, love doesn't have to last to be real. Did you enjoy the story? Would you like to hear more stories like this, age gap romances, emotional slow burns, or unexpected second chances?